So I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So I want to start tonight's programming. For those of you that don't know me, I am Kelly Pesanelli. As I said a minute ago, Sargent 96, 98, graduated from the PT program. I have been the president of the Sargent Alumni Association for just about 6 years now. It is an absolute pleasure and joy to be head of our Alumni Association. I'm also full-time faculty in the Health Sciences and Human Physiology programs, which really has allowed me to get to know Dean Jack, through my work here personally, through my teaching professionally. Dean Jack has been with us now for the past 18 months. It's truly been a pleasure. I have been holding a fireside chat at this time of the year for the past 6 years, really so that we get a chance to get to know our dean, learn about what he's done over the past 18 months since he became dean of Sargent College, and really what his vision is, short and long term. So I will be asking him some questions tonight. You do have access to the chat. So after Dean Jack and I are done having our conversation about Sargent College, I will try to get to your questions if I can. If I can't, we will absolutely get the answers to you, but please feel free to use the chat. Dean Jack, it has, I can't believe, one of the first things we did together, Dean Jack came and all of a sudden, within a few weeks, it was alumni weekend. And we had a full days of activities. And the first thing we did together is we did a 5K. I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life with Dean Jack, but I really wanted to get to know him. I can't believe that was 18 months ago. Um, so last year, you and I had our first fireside chat together, and you talked to us about doing a listening tour. And you wanted to do a listening tour with alumni and faculty and staff and students. Now that that listening tour is done, what are some of your big takeaways from the listening tour?
Um, First of all, well, that's a great question, and thank you for it. I want to just first acknowledge your role for organizing today, and really thank you for pulling us together and hosting this event. The Alumni Association is one of the things I've learned is the importance aspect of the Alumni Association for many reasons, and I think your mission is engaging the alumni with the current students, and I think that's been one of the things I've learned about how important your role in doing that is for both the alumni and our current students. And Noah just gave us another testimonial of your impact you have on the students and their careers and thinking about it. So I first wanted to thank you for that before we got going. The second thing is just the title Dean Jack. Has a history within Sargent College, and I think Sharon remembers Dean George McKechnie was affectionately known as Dean George. I didn't know that until I met some women from the class of 1954 who started calling me Dean Jack, and I was like, huh, that's kind of fun. And but then I didn't realize that that's how they referred to Dean McKechnie was Dean George, and and I think you were talking earlier about the long traditions of Sargent College, and being called Dean Jack was recognition of that tradition in and of itself. And that's something I've learned is that Sargent College is full of tradition and full of recognition of rituals and respect, but yet informality at the same time to create a sense of community. And to me, I think that's one of the big takeaways that I have had. It was since the day I arrived was the huge sense of community. And when speaking with alumni, students, staff, and faculty, it's been the same story time and time again, is that people feel a strong sense of community with with each other and the building, and even without the building when they go other places. It's been part of that. Both Joy and Sharon did not experience our current building the way it is, which started we moved into in 1990. But I think that's definitely one of the strong takeaways that I have from this past year is the strong sense of Sargent community. Now, why is that? Why do people feel special kin to it? I think it's partly why people choose Sargent College. One of the things that I've discovered as part of the listening tour is why people choose Sargent, and it often has to relate to the experiences that they have that we actually offer through our programs around experiential learning, whether it's our internship programs or our capstone projects. We actually offer sort of a triad of in our mission around education, and that includes, you know, not only just the traditional in-class training, but also giving exposure to the clinics. We have clinics in the building, and so people have firsthand experiences working with with patients, seeing patients actually working in that environment. One of the things that you've worked on, Kelly, that is really impressive is our program with the Boston Medical Campus, the Boston Medical Center, not the campus, but the actual hospital, where we have students, undergraduates going into the hospital, working as volunteers to keep patients moving and sort of escorting, sort of walking with the students, with the patients to ensure that they get up frequently and early after they've been admitted, so that their recovery is quicker. There's a lot of evidence supporting that approach, and the BMC staff just doesn't have enough. So our students are actually fulfilling that need at BMC, and at the same time understanding what it's like to work with a person, have a whole person be and treat the whole person and understand their sort of more complex human side of their issues, instead of just the medicalization of their things. And that's another part of what I've learned about one of the takeaways, but I'll come back to that in a minute. The other aspect is that people have exposure to research as undergraduate students. And I think that's really key to the experience that they have, is that sense of understanding research, understanding the scientific approach, the methods around that, and the importance and how that impacts their own education, and how they can continue to grow past the commencement ceremonies that we now have in Naganis, and actually go out into the real world and be prepared to adapt to the changing world. Is that they can sort of understand the ideas behind the science that supports their education. So those are two of the major things. I think the other major thing that I've learned is that, again, it gets back to this idea of the whole human. I think what we offer and what distinguishes Sargent from other sort of pre-health programs is that, and this is what I've heard from everyone, from alumni, students, staff, and faculty, is this idea that, through our approach, we talk about the whole human and within the context of a whole environment. So I think that's the other thing I've learned, is that, one of the major takeaways is how Sargent distinguishes itself from other pre-health programs, is we really bring in the whole human element into it. I mean, we don't teach physiology, we teach human physiology, and really think about it from the whole human aspect of it. When we think about health sciences, we think about populations, at the same time the clinical aspects of the world. And our nutritional program thinks about sort of the environment that we're exposed to, and really understanding some of the ideas around eating disorders, not to mention the science of nutrition in and of itself, from the physiology aspect. And so I think that is part of what I've also learned, and one of my major takeaways about Sargent is it's about the whole human, and about their whole life and the environment which they live in, that we really sort of take to heart. I see Jesse agreeing in this, and it's great to see both an alum and a faculty member think of that same way, and hearing that message. But that's definitely a major takeaway I've had.
That's great. And just so everybody knows, from a faculty perspective, and, Jesse, you probably nod your head to this one too, is, when when it was announced that Dean Jack, was coming to Sargent, and he announced that he was going to do a listening tour, it really made faculty and staff feel like he wanted to hear our voice. So he didn't just come in with his agenda. He came in and really got to know each and every one of us individually, came to each and every program, and got to know all of our students. and really took his first year to really dive into who Sargent faculty are, who our students are, who our alums are. And just from a faculty perspective, that really meant a lot to us, that you wanted to hear our voice.
And I think and I think, whether I knew this in advance or not, I think that was really important to create, for me to come in and respect the sense of community that was here. I didn't realize that when I started was that huge sense of community was here, but I knew I needed to respect the people, and as a result, by creating the listening tour and really sort of going through that exercise, it allows everybody to have a voice and to be heard and to be part of it. And to me, that's something I value strongly in leadership. It's something I did as part of my research around occupational, worker safety, health, and well-being, is giving workers voice to sort of the decision makers so that they can create better decisions around the sort of creating sort of conditions of work that they can be more productive and healthier while they work. So that's part of my sort of, part of my research and my scholarship and sort of my mantra around how I think organizations should work.
So for some of you might not know, we had a transition in our leadership at BU. When Dean Jack was first hired, we had an interim president and provost. Bob Brown had stepped down as president of Boston University after 18 years. And Ken Freeman, who was former dean of, I still call it SMG, Questrom, had stepped in as our interim president, and Ken Luchin stepped in, who is the dean of engineering, as our interim provost. But then this past July, President Melissa Gilliam was appointed the 11th president of Boston University, and Gloria Waters, our former dean, professor of speech language hearing sciences, dean emeritus of Sargent College, is now our provost, which I think is wonderful for Sargent College, that our provost is our former dean. So Dean Jack, with this new leadership, what inspires you most about having them as the leaders of Boston University?
First of all, I think I was a little intimidated at first that I was kind of had mixed feelings that Gloria was going to be my new boss, because I'm like, great, that's great. She knows Sargent. And I'm like, oh, crap, she knows Sargent. It was a double-edged sword with that. But since working with her, I've been really inspired by her sense of excellence around, the faculty and really creating high standards around that. I think she did that with Sargent College 20 years ago when she was dean. She really transformed Sargent College 20 years ago, that really laid the groundwork for our health science program, which she started and now is one of our largest programs in the college, with over almost 500 undergraduates enrolled in that program alone. And when we have only 1,200 undergraduates, that's a large amount in there. That and human physiology are both competing for being our largest undergraduate programs. And both of that is a result of Gloria's work that she did 20 years ago when she saw a transition in the college. So I am really inspired by having her as the provost, because she sets a standard for me to lead Sargent around growth and experience. Some of the best faculty we have today, she recruited, from Terry Ellis, Swathi Kiran, Kara Stepp. These are some of the faculty that she hired as junior faculty that are now full professors and leading some of our great centers that we have today. So that's, she really has set the bar for that. And I find that inspirational. And the conversations I'm having with her now, we're having conversations about what faculty to hire, how to have excellence in those faculty, and also have the broadness to realize that when we make a hire of our tenure track faculty, we're making a commitment of 30 to 40 years with these folks, and making sure that they can be sustainable through that is really critical to what we do. And I find that inspiring, because she sets the bar high and keeps me on my toes, but keeps the college on its toes around excellence. Dr. Gilliam, I'm inspired by the way she thinks about organizing the college. I think one of the things I really appreciate with her was she completed her listening tour about the same time I did. And I met with her before she presented hers to the faculty, and I presented to her what I've been hearing from about Sargent College. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about and find inspiring about her, more on a private note, was that what she identified as the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and strengths, a good old SWOT analysis through a listening tour, were very similar to what I heard about Sargent. And that was really kind of exciting, really focusing on the student experience. And that's one of our strengths, is the student experience, the great sense of community we have, why people come to BU to be here, and what are, our areas around convergent research, which is something that she brought up at her inaugurational speech about how well we do that at BU. And it's something we've been doing for a long time at Sargent College. Convergent research is the idea that you bring multiple disciplines together to solve a specific issue in society, and so we have many centers in Sargent who are based around this idea of convergent research. And we've been doing it for a long time in Sargent because our problems are multidisciplinary that we look at. But she, I really appreciated that. I also appreciate her way about thinking about the university. She's an MD with an MPH, so she has a public health and medical background, which is exactly what we do in Sargent College. And so I find that inspiring. And one of the things in the conversations that I've had with her and she's had with others, and what she's taken away when she's spoken to others, is this idea of that Sargent really College is really where the undergraduates at BU get their sort of health education and growth from there. But I like her thinking around sort of a social sort of a biopsychosocial approach to health. One of the things that really inspired me with our conversations I had with her one-on-one was this idea that when you look at a person's health, and they're especially around their health behaviors, whether it's reproductive health, of which she studied, or with me around worker safety and health, it's often, the way we thought about it is from a systems point of view, that the behaviors of these individuals are a result of the environment that they're exposed to. And it's this idea of organizational psychology, or whatever, or groups, population psychology. For me, it's organizational. And she's been thinking about the way about that in terms of BU overall. And she actually developed a logic model of how BU works and what our outcomes are and all the nitty gritty about it. And it's just the way she thinks about how to sort of lead the organization and manage it and thinks about it as a system is something I really value. So I'm inspired by her thinking around that. And then not to mention that she's Dr. Melissa Gilliam herself, at the inauguration, when she sat down in the founder's chair, it was really kind of a special moment, because that founder, being the 11th person to sit in that chair as president, and to be the first woman, not to mention the first African-American woman to sit in that seat, was really powerful. And the whole audience, when it happened, it wasn't rehearsed, but it just was this instant sort of electrification of the room, where everybody just rose. While she sat down in that seat, everybody else stood up in respect of the moment and the historical moment that we had at that moment. And it was just really awe-inspiring to see that and be part of that, and be in the room when that happened live was just really kind of a special moment. So I find lots of inspiration from both of them in terms of leadership, and they both see, I think they both value what Sargent brings to BU in terms of how it's unique and how it represents BU in a global way. We are, and Sharon will help me remind me, the only #1 program in all of BU is in Sargent College. That's our occupational therapy program, which is ranked #1, and in the country by U.S. News and World Report. Speech, language, and hearing sciences is ranked 5. PT is moving on up, as at 11 right now. And nutrition, while it's not ranked, it has 100% pass rate for its programs. So, and this is something we brag about for all of our programs across, with that to Dr. Gilliam. And so that's been really inspiring, as well as they recognize the importance of Sargent. I mean, Gloria, obviously, but Dr. Gilliam sees it too.
That's fantastic to hear. And her background as a practitioner and with her master's of public health, as you said, is really in direct alignment with, our missions, our values, and, what we're teaching and practicing at Sargent. So one of the things that you had mentioned, and I've heard as well at her inauguration and also sitting on university council with you, is her emphasizing convergent research. What are some examples or some areas of convergent research that we currently have going on at Sargent?
So, this is something, that I've been asking the faculty about and talking to the faculty, and it's part of the listening tour, and it's sort of an extension of the listening tour. But I think, we've in doing this, and I actually asked the chairs to go out, and the faculty in the room have participated in this conversation in their own departments. And I break it down into sort of four sort of big areas. And I think the first one, and I want the naming of all these areas is still formulating. I'm working with Janet Everson, our Associate Dean of Research, to come up and also along with the chairs to sort of finalize the documentation of this, and we'll be sort of organizing some of our reports around this. But I think the first area that we really do is around cognitive and brain health. And I think, this goes across our departments. We bring neuroscientists, we bring clinicians, we bring engineers, we bring data scientists together to think about how to look at these disorders of the brain, whether it's an acute or chronic, whether it's mental health issues or degenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's or dementia. We pull all these together to look at, to bring different disciplines together to look at how brain and cognitive health impacts the lives of folks. And we do this from basic science to transformative research to clinical aspects. And I think that's definitely one of the things that we do. It's common across BU. It's one of the things that I think aligns well with all of BU in terms of this. And in fact, at a retreat with the president, talking about what areas of convergent research we have, that came up. And it was the first thing mentioned was cognitive brain health. I might have had something to do with that, but anyway, but we said it, and several all the deans and the people in the room and the associate provosts that were in the room for this retreat agreed that that's an important area for all of BU as well. The second thing that we do, and these are by no means order of priority, just second in my list as I go through them to keep me track that I've got four, that we've got four sort of identified. The second one on the list is what I call healthy living, and actually that's a whole initiative with the National Institutes of Health. They have a whole section, a multidisciplinary cross-institute program around healthy living. In fact, one of my colleagues from Minnesota was the co-chair of the Healthy Living 2030 project that the NIH has led. He was part of the task force that sort of created this initiative. But the idea of healthy living comes from sort of the International Classification of Functionality, Disability and Functionality, how it defines disability around the idea of activities and participation in society. So I think a lot of what we do is one of the areas is making sure people are able to live healthy within their communities, no matter what their health conditions are and their chronic health. And I think that's part of rehab, right? Part of rehab is this idea of realizing people have had events and health conditions in their lives, but that doesn't mean that they can't complete activities and participate in the activities of daily living, including work and the like. So that's what I call healthy living. It's, our occupational therapy program is very much oriented around this idea. So is our physical therapy, much more on the mechanical side of it, but occupational therapy, our behavioral health program, our nutritional program, all these programs are really looking at this idea of healthy living. The third area is what I call health services and delivery. And again, these are not all mutually exclusive. There's a lot of overlap. I sort of, in thinking about a slide to produce, I imagine a lot of circles, overlapping Venn diagram type of things. But the third one is this idea of health services and delivery. And I actually put in, and I'm not sure everybody agrees with me with this, but I put in digital health as part of this, because I think digital health is, while, is not there, is allowing us to deliver interventions in new ways. I don't think, I don't think the intervention technology is changing too much, but it's allowing us to do delivery in new ways, which might open up new methods because we can do things differently. And in fact, one of the things, and this is where the debate comes from, is also wearable technology. And I mean both sensors as well as um, exoskeletons. Terry Ellis is working with a group at Harvard, working with a bunch of engineers at the Weiss Institute there, which is looking at, the Weiss Institute was created to look at biologically informed and inspired engineering. And one of the things they've been doing is exoskeletons. These basically, it sounds more complex than it really is. It's just an outside source that sort of helps push you in a certain direction. And she's been using that to address Parkinson's, freezing of gait among Parkinson's patients, and really have seen really remarkable, unseen kind of results, pioneering results that no one's ever seen before with the Parkinson's patients, and making new ways with that. But also wearable sensors in terms of, what we have, our iPhones, our digital technology, measuring behaviors, and then using that data to help inform interventions, as well as just simple telehealth through this as well. So, but we're also looking at healthcare systems and looking at learning health systems. We got Emily Evans as a young junior faculty member who's looking at, and we're creating a new partnership with the Shepherd Center outside of Atlanta, funded in part by the Travis Roy Foundation, looking at how to sort of use learning health systems, which is basically a systems approach of taking data and learning from the data to adjust what you're doing. It's basically a continuous improvement model approach that is used throughout industry, but very little in healthcare, and learning how to do it. And people are doing this in ICUs and very acute healthcare, but no one's really looking at it in rehab. And this is a great pioneering research that Emily's doing. And then some of the stuff that Lawrence Weir is doing in health sciences around different healthcare delivery systems in different countries. And the classes you teach, Kelly, around healthcare sort of support this as well. And finally, since we have a strong sense of clinical faculty, one of the areas of our research is in the pedagogy of pedagogy of teaching and learning, health sciences and rehab sciences. And so we have a bunch of faculty. And so that is something that we recognize. And I think it's something that the university needs to recognize too, is the scholarship of learning. And with the new AI coming into the artificial intelligence, especially generative AI coming into the world, we read a lot about that last year with ChatGPT, and now we're looking at how we can sort of do a better job of teaching using AI, and also learning, not to have AI be substitute as a tool for folks to get their homework done, but more as a tool to create and improve critical thinking, and also help improve the productivity of our professors, and really use it as a critical tool to help our students learn faster and better, not as a tool for them to sort of get through their homework easier, but actually learn more stuff. And there's ways to use AI that way. And so if we can be smart about it, and our former Dean of Engineering, Ken Luchin, and also our interim provost for my first year at BU, is leading up what the university is doing around AI. And that's a huge initiative across the whole university, and really excited to see how that's going to turn out. And I'm really excited how he's thinking about it, how BU's thinking about it, and even inside Sargent, how we're thinking about it as we move forward. Dusty Allen, the head of the human physiology program, was the chair of a task force that we led here in Sargent last year, and we've kind of been waiting the last couple months to see what the university wants to do, but he's also representing us on that committee at the university level. So he's bringing that back. So I'm quite excited about that as well. So those are kind of the 4 areas of convergent research, sort of the healthy brain and the health. Well, I want to call it healthy brain because I like to put the word health in everything, but healthy brain, cognitive and brain health is the more acceptable term. Healthy living, health services and delivery, and the final one is the pedagogy of health sciences and rehab.
Fabulous. So one of the other things that Dr. Gilliam talks a lot about is and she really emphasizes, is the experience of the student. How has Sargent invested in teaching and its academic mission over these past, for you, 18 months, to really enrich the student experience?
Right. I mean, the first thing is what I've already said before, and that is achieving, having excellent faculty. And I think, investing in the faculty is key. Dr. Gilliam talks about creating the conditions where faculty can thrive. And I really like that because it talks about this idea of, gets back to some of our systems thinking about, if we can create better working conditions for our faculty, they can then thrive more. And that's something that we're doing. And I think one of the things that we're doing right now to actually give our faculty a little bit more time is we're actually transitioning, the whole university is transitioning to a professional advising model. And so the professional advising model, so we're actually investing in more professional advisors. We're going to be hiring 3 new advisors this year to sort of augment our current advising staff that is in our brand new renovated facility in our lobby, the academic services unit, which we moved from the 2nd floor into the lobby right off the street off Com Ave. So you walk in and the students see the academic services and the counseling right away when they come in. So that's one of the ways we're investing in the student experiences by looking at the, not only the number and the type of faculty the advisors the faculty have, but the spaces that they're in, and that they're the first people you see when you enter our building now are the academic advisors. It just really emphasizes the importance of that student experience there, and I'm excited by that. Other things that we've invested in the last couple of years, I think right before I arrived, by the way, that was the new lobby with the new advising center was created. The ribbon cutting event was my first day on campus. I wasn't officially dean yet, but it was my first day on campus in July of 2023. The other thing that we did that was done prior to me arriving was the creation of the clinical simulation lab, where we have 2 full functioning hospital rooms with a control room that are set up for designing and set up for observation of students in simulated experiences. We have standard patients that come in and emulate specific issues, and they get guided both, through communication systems. It's like a bunch of Secret Service people with things in their ears, but it's quite a lot of technology, so we can observe this and put students in sort of a risk-free environment to learn and to actually come together, and it also expands our interprofessional education. So those are 2 things that were done by the time I arrived. We've been investing in the operations of the clinical sim center. It's not just you just don't build it. You have to also then think about how to maintain it and sustain it over the long term. And so we've hired a full-time director of the center who's really been developing this and expanding our training of all our faculty, how to use it and use simulation training. Again, it gives that hands-on experience in a safe environment. And we can do a lot of our interprofessional training in the rooms as well in terms of that. Some of the things we're looking at doing that we're moving is one of the great assets that our alumni talk about is their anatomy, the gross anatomy experiences that they have at BU, and thinking about that. So one of the areas that we need to look at is, since we moved into this building, in 1990, that's 35 years ago now. And there's, any homeowner knows that 35 years is a long time in a building. And so, and in any space that's highly used, such as the anatomy lab, it's time for updates. And that anatomy space is one of the things that's on my priority list to update and and we're looking for funds to support that anatomy lab and looking at how to rebuild it. We've got a design on hand. However, the technology is changing, so we have to go back to a little bit to the design board. But but that's actually probably a good thing that we've waited, but now is the time to update it because also the technology is changing. So it's a perfect time for us to think about doing that. The other thing is, our student lounge has been sort of moving around from the 6th floor to the different floors, and we're actually creating a permanent space for it on our 2nd floor, right off the Sederberg Lounge, which opens up to our lobby too in a better way than it did before. And so we're going to actually break ground on that probably right after convocation in May, commencement in May, once the students are out, because it's going to take a while for us to get the permits, but then more importantly, it can be done when classes are not going on in 200 in the rooms right off the lounge on the 2nd floor, but it will be right there. And it'll be bright. They're going to put in some lighting and being an ergonomics and ergonomics and human factors person, lighting is key in so much of this, and having a warm, welcoming space will be really key. And again, it'll be right off the 2nd floor, right where students hang out already. The lobby itself, just in opening it up and putting furniture there, it's always full with students studying and working. And it is a little quiet now because it's the intercession, but still, that's where people hang out, and it's really kind of amazing, and sort of creating that hangout space and the physical space for community is so critical.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the 1st floor. I mean, almost all of us remember the 1st floor the way it used to be with Sargent 101 and no, I see Noah shaking his head. And my best memories at Sargent were in 101, and then it got renovated and it was really hard. But now I walk in and, I used to say, when I taught in there, if my students' computers weren't fully charged, they had to sit in the outlet section. Because there weren't outlets for them to plug their devices into. And now everybody has an outlet. And I really look forward to, seeing the plans for renovation. My fingers are crossed that the gross anatomy lab can be renovated. As wonderful of memories I have being in that lab, spending many nights in there, it's tough.
Well, you were in there in the early 90s when it was still sort of younger than 10 years. So
Yeah, it's the same lab. Great memories, but I'm really glad that that's on your agenda to really look at renovating. So now to wrap up, what are the things you're really looking for? I'm going to preface this in 2 ways. We kind of work on an academic year, so we basically have the spring semester coming up. But Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to 2025. What are your goals? What are you looking forward to most this year, spring, fall semester of 2025?
Oh, the list is long, but let me say, first of all, one of the things what I look forward to is talking to alumni, talking to students, talking to faculty about what they're working on and what they're doing. So I think one of my goals is, while I've listened a lot to what are the big issues and stuff, I think one of my goals for this year is to get to know people deeper and better and really understand some of the more, what are the specific research programs people are doing. So I'm attending our the grants, I forget what it's called now, studios where people present their grant ideas and do it. So I'm going to those, and I have to say that's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most this year, is getting to know the specific research, not just like the general, what's the big ideas, but what are the specific things people are working on more in depth. I've got a good feel, but to do it more in depth and understand what the recent grants people are doing, and really get to understand that better so that I can represent it better and describe it better to all our stakeholders. I think one of my goals is one of the things is really start improving some of our communications around what that research looks like to more people around the world. I think, one of the things that has always made Sargent great has been this idea that research informs everything else we do, and also everything else we do informs our research. It is really a research to practice and a practice to research environment. And one of the things I want to do is really talk more about that and communicate that in a stronger way. I think Sargent has always come from an underdog position, and I want to change the culture to say, no, we're not an underdog, we are a leader, and really present it as such and not be apologetic. I'm trying to say, when people say small but great, I'm saying small and great, changing the argument just slightly so that we can really think about and really advance the college mission. I think some of the specifics around that is thinking about our new hires. We've got 3 hires right now, 3 searches going on with faculty. So that's something to is we're looking at hiring a biostatistician kind of person to really expand our capability around data sciences, not only for our teaching, but also for our research and helping build our capacity there and supporting all the research that we have around that, because having someone devoted to our own faculty around statistical and data support can really expand some of our research programs. I think we have a 10-year hire. It will be the first 10-year hire under my watch with speech, language, and hearing sciences. They've just wrapped up the campus interviews, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the committee reports. I've of course met with all the candidates and found them all excellent, and really thinking strategically along with that department about where do they want to invest their future and what will that look like, because all 3 of them were different in some way, and really thinking about that. So I'm looking forward to that. And then finally, thinking a lot about our undergraduate program. I really want to see how can I think it's rich for opportunity for a little bit more synergy. I think we've had these traditional programs that have sort of come up from the years, and I don't want to take those programs away, but I want to think, how can we be more efficient with these programs to really expand our capacity to do more? And I think, our investment, I'm looking forward to seeing the results of our investment in the professional advising program, because that's going to give their faculty more time to do other things. And part of that is to really develop their own research program. So some of my goals, one of the things I'm hoping for is that we can continue our upward trajectory of research. Right now, we've been increasing for the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, we've doubled our external research funding. I want to see that continued. I'm hoping to reach 20 million in the next 5 years. Right now, we're about 15 million a year in expenditures, and I'm hoping we can break 20 million in about 5 years from now. So thinking about that is one of the things that I'm also looking forward to doing and that depends a lot on the faculty we hire, as well as the current faculty and the resources they have to spend time writing grants, and the support that we have in evaluating and writing good grants. I think, it's easy to write a grant. It's much more difficult to write a grant that gets funded from external, and that takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of sort of coaching and mentoring. So that's another aspect that I'm looking at. It gets back to that idea of how can we better create the conditions so the faculty can thrive. And one of the things I hope to grow this year and formalize is a college-wide standard around mentoring of our junior faculty, and then also our associate professors, so that they can get promoted and into full professors and be the like as well. Not to mention, how do we create tracks for our clinical faculty to be successful as well. I say that knowing there's some faculty online. but I don't, and not just to please them, but because it's important to our college. I mean, 2/3 of our faculty are non-tenure track, more teaching faculty. And one of the things is in our health science department is that I think we can grow the research capacity of our clinical faculty. There's nothing that says we can't. And so how can we do that given this environment? So I'd like to know more about that kind of thing.
Fantastic.
I see.
So a question just came in, and it was something that we were going to talk a little bit about. For those of you that might not be aware, our early decision 1 admits came in for our class of 2028. 29. Oh my goodness.
29. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So yeah.
And we have our class of 2028 data for us. What I have to say it is, from the data that, has been presented to us at University Council, they continue to state it as the best and brightest class. Every year, it gets higher and higher. When some of us were admitted, our, Boston University's acceptance rate was 30 to 40%, and now we're hovering 11%, 12%. A question just came in, though, about our student body diversity, and this is something that was presented, Dean Jack, to you and I, University Council, about the diversity at Sargent. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have specific numbers, and diversity this past year with the SCOTUS decision about admissions and things, BU was like every other school, we saw our diversity go down post this admissions process without looking at a race as a category in the admissions process. And like Harvard and Yale and many other programs across the country, we've seen a decrease in the number of underrepresented folks in our population. What we didn't see a change in, one thing that is strong at both Sargent and in BU overall is the first generation students. That number we do have, we can go and recruit on that isn't in violation of the SCOTUS decision, and it's something we feel very comfortable about. We have the Newberry Center, which is really looking at first generation, and in Sargent College, first generation students we have a strong representation of first generation students. And it's not first generation in that they're first generation immigrants. It's actually first in their families to go to college. That's really what the definition is. So people from working class, my father was a first generation when he went to college with a GI Bill from a working class family north of New York City. Mainly a construction family. His dad was in the construction industry and things like that. So this idea of first generation, BU has the Newberry Center, which is headed up by Anthony Jack, who's a recent faculty member who joined the Wheelock School of Education and Human Development, formerly SED, and joined them and is the co-faculty director of the center. And he really talks about the idea of first generation students and the challenges that they have and facing. So that's something that's really important that we're working on. Sargent overall, when you look at us compared to BU, our students are the most diverse of all the colleges. And that's something we take pride in. And I think it relates back to that first generation. One of the things is that I learned this past year is why do students choose Sargent College over, and Sargent looks a little different than the rest of BU. And what people choose when they come to us is that hands-on experience, those opportunities for clinical internships is something that they do. And that aligns really nicely with first generation needs and and in fact, we just saw a presentation recently, I think it was University Council, Kelly. I can't remember if it was that or no, it might've been ULG, which you weren't at, the University Leadership Group meeting where Kelly Waters, head of admissions, presented first generation, why people choose why do first generation folks choose BU? And this is very similar to why people choose Sargent College. And I find that really interesting. And I think it has to relate to that experiential learning aspect of our curriculum compared to other programs at BU. So I think that's really exciting. I think we have a lot to do around this area. We are doing a lot. We've created partnerships with some historical Black colleges for the rehab sciences aspect of it, and we're exploring ways that we can grow that program, specifically the National College, it's North Carolina Agricultural Technology University is some place that we're working specifically with. I'm investing in supporting students coming to the college and learning about this. Also University of Houston, which has traditionally things. So we're partnering with colleges that have strong underrepresented populations to come learn about rehab sciences and actually have them do internships with us. And some have come and done postdocs or done other aspects of that. And one of the things that Anthony Jack talks about is when folks come on campus, first generation folks don't really understand that they could get a research fellowship, and work in a lab. Instead, they go and work, work in the campus stores. They do more of the laboral, the sort of the working class jobs. And it's something he says that we need to do a better job of sort of introducing first generation students to the opportunities that other folks already know about in colleges. And I think that's something that I think we can do at Sargent College to do better around, is really thinking about how can we look at our underrepresented and first generation college students and make them aware of these opportunities that they can actually get paid to do research, and that actually helps advance their careers as opposed to doing other types of jobs on campus, such as food service and other things that really won't advance their careers as much, and sort of giving equal opportunity to folks around those spectrums. And those are some of the things that I've been thinking about and wanting to work on as we go forth, and working with our faculty director of diversity inclusion. So that's some of the things that we're working on. But I can say that, you were already talking about this, and that some of the data that's in front of us, that I have in front of me right now about the class of 2029, the early decisions were released right before Christmas, around the first or second week of December. And out of a class of 150, we already have 89 people signed up, enrolled, and that are coming to join us next fall. And they're really bright. In my Jack's Corner, my weekly email to the community, I said these folks are wicked smart. They have a average high school GPA of 3.92 compared to all of BU admits of 3.84. So not only are we, it's pretty exclusionary, we're getting the smartest students at BU. So we have the most diverse and the smartest students at BU coming to us, and I'm really excited by that and proud.
Yeah, it makes us proud to be Sargent alums. We're nearing the end of our time. I want to start off by thanking you for being here with us tonight. I know you had a very long, busy day. This start of the semester, campus is starting to be repopulated with faculty and staff. So thank you so much for taking your time tonight to be here with us. Everybody that joined us, thank you. Tonight's talk was recorded, and we will start to be posting these to one of the Sargent websites that you will be sent a link for if you'd like to rewatch tonight's talk. I want to wish everybody a happy new year. I hope to see you back on campus. Just, I guess, a spoiler for Alumni Weekend this coming September. I'm going to have a very similar format to what I did this year, whereas I'm inviting as many alums back to campus that can possibly come to serve on a panel for the program that you graduated from, so that you can interact with our current students and they can learn about how you got to where you are now. They are craving interaction with our alums, so I would be thrilled if you could join us in person on campus this coming Alumni Weekend. I know a lot of communication will go out about it, but I'd love to see you in person on campus. Thank you for being here with us. And Dean Jack, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us tonight. And I want to thank Astrid and Christina. They just tirelessly, I give them an idea, they run with it, they do all the behind the scenes. So I would be remiss to not thank them so much for making tonight happen, and all of the work that, my ideas, making them come to fruition. So thank you. Have a great night, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you at our next event. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.